Hi, I'm Kenya, and I'm Product Marketing Manager here at Culture Shift. Culture Shift is a tech for good business that exists to transform organizational cultures so that people belong or feel safe to speak up if they don't. Our online platform gives people a place to report culture-damaging behaviors, and it empowers organizations to understand their culture through data. Now, culture is a huge topic for most organizations right now. And savvy organizations understand that positive cultures can have positive impacts on key metrics like retention, performance, and innovation. In fact, data from the Harvard Business Review showed that companies with a strong corporate culture can see an increase in revenue growth of up to 4 times more than companies with weak cultures. Now, in this short video, I'll be giving you some helpful tips on understanding your company culture through data. But I'll start with defining what I mean by that. Company culture is often defined as being the value and belief systems that form the identity of an organization or group. But that can be quite difficult to explain and can easily be described as being more of a feeling than anything tangible. But the problem with that is when culture is thought of as being intangible, it can also be seen as being difficult, if not impossible, to measure. But through working with over 100 organizations to understand and improve culture, we know that not only is it possible to measure, it's also essential, because the data really stacks up on showing us why good culture is good business. For example, the Harvard Business Review showed that teams that have a strong sense of shared purpose and values increase performance by 17% versus those that don't. And studies have shown a direct correlation between companies with the highest returns and those that feature on Fortune's annual 100 Best Companies to Work For list. So getting culture right can have huge benefits for not only your organization, but also the people that work within it. Now, to get this right, there are 4 stages that you'll want to look at, which I'm going to be taking you through today. The first is setting objectives, then knowing what data to collect. Third is knowing how to collect that data, and then finally using data to understand your culture. Let's start with setting objectives. Before you can start to measure culture, you first need to think about what good looks like to you. See, culture isn't just one thing, and how you can measure it will depend on the nature of your organization. See, most organizations can try to measure things like belonging and inclusion at work, but say, for example, you work at a SaaS tech business like we do here at Culture Shift. A positive culture might create more tech innovation or more consistency in how your teams are completing projects on time. In retail, however, success might look like higher customer satisfaction ratings, fewer sick days, and so on. Now, understanding what good likes to you is the first step in being able to measure and understand where your culture is now and in setting trackable KPIs against its improvement. If you're not sure, a good place to start is just thinking about what the impact has been on your business so far with the absence of the culture that you desire, or what the impact would be if you didn't start to take action now. It's also worth taking the time to consider why creating a positive culture is important to your organization. If you can ensure that all parties responsible for making decisions on culture are aligned in your motivations, that's going to help you to prioritize your workload when it comes to taking action. Now, both of these things are going to help you when it comes to considering point 2, which is knowing what data to collect. When it comes to culture, you can look at data from 2 perspectives. First, direct culture-affirming metrics, and then metrics impacted by the outcomes of culture. Culture-affirming metrics are often measurable by asking people direct questions related to their experience within your organization. These might look like a sense of belonging, employee wellness, or inclusion. This data is often, but not always, based on feeling and sentiment, and as a result, it can often be dynamic. The second lens is through business performance. There are specific metrics that you can measure and track to give you a sense of your company culture, such as employee referrals, so are people willing to shout about your organization on social media or when job postings are listed, and are they leaving positive or negative reviews on websites like Glassdoor? Then productivity. Are your teams reaching goals in both a timely manner and to a high standard? Thirdly, retention. When people come to work for you, are they sticking around? And finally, engagement. Are employees engaging in activities outside of their specific job roles, such as engaging with internal comms? Are they contributing through feedback channels? And so on. If you see significant underperformance in any of these areas, that can be a big sign of an unsuccessful culture. Now, of these 2 lenses, direct outcomes and metrics, which should you be measuring? Well, the likelihood is you'll want to be measuring both, because while culture can influence positive business outcomes, performance alone does not create a positive culture. Now, this leads on to looking at how to collect data. A lot of organizations have spent time defining what they expect their organizational culture to look like, and you might have formalized this through value statements or the behaviors that you want your employees to embody. However, culture isn't what we dictate it to be, it's what people experience. And therefore, one of the most effective ways of measuring culture is by asking people. A popular method for doing this is through employee or pulse surveys. They can give you a really good view of how employees are feeling about your company culture. And because surveys often target all employees, you can get a really good view of what's happening across your whole organization and not just in pockets. Now, methods such as focus groups and interviews are a really great way of gaining a deeper understanding through the lens of employees, because they allow you to deep dive into topics and really understand the sentiment behind responses at a granular level. Now, the downfall of this is that they take a lot of time to execute, and the size of the participant pool can often be a lot smaller than quantitative methods. Surveys remove those barriers. However, we spoke about how direct measures of culture can be dynamic, and the challenge with surveys is that they are often very time-bound. They take a snapshot of culture at one point in time. Let's say you ask an employee what their experience of culture-damaging behaviours has been so far. They might give you one answer. Then if they start to experience something from a day, a week from now, it could be another quarter or year before they're asked again. Instead, finding ways to open up consistent channels of communication will allow you to gather real-time and dynamic feedback on your culture. An online reporting platform offers that solution. By having a platform that is accessible 24/7 for 365 days of the year, people can report culture-damaging behaviours however and whenever feels most intuitive to them. It modernizes the old open-door policy of HR teams and allows you to gather data at an aggregated level. You're able to gather data on the issues that you know are the challenges for your employees and give them the space and autonomy to bring insights to you, rather than just seeking the information that you're asking for. Capturing the employee voice gives you real data to combine with your performance data, which you can gather through standard HR and employee performance tools. With that, you can start to contextualize performance data. An increase in attrition, for example, starts to make sense when you can see an increase in reporting rates of harassment in the months leading up to that period. See, data can be a really powerful tool for understanding your culture, and I'm going to show you now how some of our partners are using our platform to do so. Firstly, through monitoring reporting trends, they're getting direct information on the types and nature of the behaviours impacting their people. Armed with this knowledge, intervention can be targeted at the issues that are actually impacting your people, not just what you assume might be. It can be very easy to fall into the trap of repeating training, campaigning, and awareness on a cyclical basis. For example, always addressing LGBTQ+ matters in June. However, once you create an avenue to understand what the reality of your workplace culture is, your action can be data-driven and ultimately more effective. Any communication you deliver throughout your organisation will be more effective if you understand who you're communicating with. So understanding who is being impacted by culture-damaging behaviours is vital. For example, one of our partners was able to identify an issue with racial discrimination in one department of their organisation. It was manifesting as the misuse of a language, and it was impacting the wider team. The data showed that the culture there just wasn't inclusive enough, and taking that, they were able to intervene directly and slowly resolve the issue. Finally, how people report to you can indicate whether there's a culture of trust within your organisation. Most of our partners start working with us when there is a trust gap. We see that in the data around the number of people that choose to report anonymously. More often than not, all of the reasons for this fall into the trust category. Not trusting that they'll be believed, not trusting that anything will be done with the report, or not trusting that they'll be protected after a report is made. After working with us for a year, most of our partners see an increase in both total reports, showing that there's both an awareness and willingness to report, but also that more people are willing to make named report over anonymous reports. Our partners are using this data to understand not only what the reality of employee or student experience is, but also that their work in creating a culture where people can speak up is effective. So that's a whistle-stop tour on how you can start to understand your culture through data. If you have any questions, or if you'd like to hear more about how we're helping over 100 organisations transform their culture, reach out. We'd love to talk.